The Congress Working Committee is scheduled to meet today in order to discuss the poll preparedness ahead of India's Lok Sabha polls. The meeting has been convened by the Congress President Rahul Gandhi and it will be held at the Congress's headquarters in New Delhi's Akbar Road. Meanwhile, the Congress has also released a fresh list of about 10 more candidates. The party has fielded Tariq Anwar from Bihar's Katihar and B.K. Hariprasad from Bengaluru South, Karti Chidambaram from Tamil Nadu's Sivaganga and also Suresh Dhanorkar from Chandrapura in Maharashtra. Now, Kamal Haasan's party Makkal Needi Mayam and its leader Kamal Haasan have announced that he will not contest the upcoming Lok Sabha polls. Kamal Haasan has released his party's manifesto in Coimbatore. The actor-turned-politician said that he has a lot of work to do and will work towards ensuring the success of his candidates rather than contesting the polls. Kamal Haasan has also said that he would not run even for Tamil Nadu by polls. In a major political victory for US President Donald Trump, US Attorney General William Barr has said that the special counsel Robert Mueller found no evidence of collusion between President Donald Trump's election team and Russia in the 2016 presidential elections. While Robert Mueller left open the possibility that Trump had obstructed justice in his response to the Russia probe, William Barr concluded that the evidence was not sufficient to establish that the president had committed an obstruction of justice offense. Robert Mueller had said that he would leave it to the Attorney General to decide whether a crime had been committed. Top congressional Democrats have demanded that complete Mueller report should be released, stressing that Special Counsel Robert Mueller did not exonerate President Donald Trump. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and also Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer have released a joint statement on the same lines. The statement said that Attorney General Bill Barr is not a neutral observer as he was nominated just months ago by Donald Trump. The leaders have also said that William Barr's summary of the Mueller report is not an objective determination about Mueller's findings. The Democrat presidential candidate Christine Gillibrand has officially kicked off her presidential run. The New York senator has called US President Donald Trump a coward for tearing apart the moral fabric of the United States. Addressing a crowd near the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Manhattan, Gillibrand said that the property is a shrine that represents greed, division and vanity. After announcing her presidential run in January, Gillibrand had spent the last couple of months traveling across the United States, campaigning and also raising money. The wife of Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido has called on President Nicolas Maduro and has described him as an executioner. Rosales was in fact speaking in Peru, where she's met with the Venezuelan immigrants before a trip to the United States. The 26-year-old journalist and activist has said that the arrest of Guaido's chief of staff, Roberto Marrero, was essentially an attempt to disrupt Guaido's close team. The Rosales do not reveal as to whom she plans to meet in the United States. Meanwhile, in Monaco, Chinese President Xi Jingping has held talks with Prince Albert II on strengthening the China-Monaco relationship. Xi Jingping has noted the affinity that is shared between the two countries and has said that since China and Monaco had established diplomatic relations more than 20 years ago, the two sides have always treated each other as equals with sincerity and friendship. Xi Jingping said that China and Monaco have set a fine example of friendly exchanges between the states that are vastly different in size and have different historical and cultural backgrounds and social systems and also people-to-people exchanges. When thousands took to the streets of Madrid to join the anti-abortion protests, pro-life demonstrators demanded for a reversal of Spain's abortion law that allows for the termination of pregnancy within 14 weeks. The demonstrators shouted slogans such as "Yes to Life" and also "United Youth Fighting for Life." The hundreds marched from Serrano Street to the Alcala Gate, where they dropped hundreds of green balloons at the memory of the unborn children. And hundreds of supporters of the Turkish President Recep Erdogan attended a rally in Istanbul. The rally drew as many as about 1.6 million people ahead of the 31st of March municipal polls. The top officials of Turkey's governing Justice and Development Party and also its election rally, the Nationalist Movement Party, were also present in the mega rally. A 24-year-old Palestinian was killed during the weekly border protests in the embattled Gaza Strip. 24-year-old Habib al-Masri was shot in the chest and then succumbed to his wounds. Hundreds had gathered for protests in various locations, hurling stones and firebombs towards Israel. The Israeli military says that in response to the explosives, its aircraft targeted Hamas observation posts in southern Gaza Strip. For the past year, about 190 Palestinians and also an Israeli soldier have been killed in the weekly rallies. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump is expected to sign a decree recognizing the Israeli sovereignty on the Golan Heights today. The development, of course, is expected to take place as Trump hosts Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. A senior US official said last week that the Trump administration was preparing an official document to codify support for Israel's annexation of the strategic plateau that it had seized from Syria in the 1967 war. At least about 115 people have been killed in an attack in central Mali's Fulani village. Survivors say that the attack had an ethnic motivation behind it and have blamed the traditional Donzo hunters for it. The survivors recounting the attack on a United Nations delegation also said that the village headman and all of his grandchildren were killed in the attacks. The survivors further added that the victims included pregnant women and small children. And thousands of teachers took to the streets of Morocco's capital city of Rabat to demand better working conditions. The police have used water cannons to disperse large groups of protesters. Authorities were in fact trying to end a rally of an estimated 15,000 teachers in front of the parliament, where they planned to spend the night ahead of an even bigger demonstration that was called by the coalition of the leftist opposition parties, unions and civil society groups. International aid continues to pour into Mozambique a week after the deadly cyclone Idai tore through the country. The death toll in the southern African nation has now risen to about 446, and several hundred people are still said to be missing. In the country's worst affected area, the port city of Beira, survivors continue to dig through the rubble to look for the bodies of their loved ones. The evacuation of passengers from a cruise ship off the western coast of Norway that was stranded in stormy weather has now ended, and the ship has reached the port of Molde. The luxury cruise liner was stranded in the choppy seas after an engine failure and sent out a mayday signal on Saturday, following which rescue teams with helicopters airlifted 479 people from the vessel. Pope Francis has renewed his appeal for a peaceful dialogue in Nicaragua as he addressed thousands of people in St. Peter's Square. Nicaragua has been in a bit of a political crisis since President Daniel Ortega attempted social security reforms last April, leading to massive protests. Now, the ensuing chaos has put Central American nation in recession. On the 27th of February, the government and the opposition leaders had restarted talks aimed at the ending of the national crisis. Kosovo marked the 20th anniversary of NATO's intervention. North Atlantic Treaty Organization, remember, had intervened into Serbia's onslaught in Kosovo in 1999 and had ended the war. Kosovo's Prime Minister also paid a visit to the memorial sites to pay respects to those who lost their lives during the war and reflected on the conflict 20 years ago as difficult times. Kosovo is not a United Nations member, though it has been recognized by at least 116 countries. Thousands of Argentines took to the streets of Buenos Aires to mark the 42nd anniversary of the start of the country's brutal military dictatorship. Historically dubbed as Argentina's Dirty War, the Argentines carried photographs of those who went missing during the military rule. Calling for justice for the victims, the protesters vowed to never forget the tens of thousands who went missing. Prince Charles and his wife Camilla are in Cuba as part of the Caribbean tour. The couple lay a flower wreath at the Jose Marti Memorial in Havana's Revolution Square. They are the first British royals to visit Cuba, and their visit comes even as the United States seeks to isolate the country. The royal couple were asked by the UK government to add Cuba to their tour of former and current British territories in the hopes of boosting commercial relations and also political influence. The British Embassy has said that there are no plans for Charles to meet with Raul Castro.
Peter Tamachi.
A Kenyan teacher from a remote village won a $1 million prize for his contribution to a government school. The annual Global Teacher Prize was awarded to Peter Tamachi in the opulent Atlantis Hotel in Dubai in a ceremony hosted by actor Hugh Jackman. Tamachi said that the farthest that he had travelled before this was to Uganda, and coming to Dubai marked his first time on an airplane. Tamachi has been giving away most of his earnings to the poor and has been teaching science to high schoolers in the semi-arid village of Varni. Most of the students in his school are orphans or have only one parent. The school has just a single computer and the internet barely works.
Thanks so much.
Green dragons, singing dogs and dancing monkeys took to the streets of Mexico City. The puppets and also the puppeteers were part of the World Puppetry Day celebrations. The puppeteers displayed various art forms, including the marionette, which derives from the world of fantasy, where the puppets share ideas of peace and brotherhood.